Hello everybody, JGamerB here, and I am gonna talk about Springtrap in the game so far. And right now, I know Springtrap and I know FNAF for a while now, but I'm not gonna get into too deep with that. Right now, I want to talk about my experience so far with Springtrap for almost a month of playing as him constantly, or at least trying to practice him a lot for nearly 3 weeks now. So far, I know I've been taking break from the game, but I'm also keeping in check playing this killer back and forth and all before, at least after his release. But now, because I have played him for many times, I think it's time I talk about what I really feel about Springtrap. So, what do I feel about him? I don't think he's a good killer. I really don't. A lot of people say he's B tier, but I don't think he's around that. He feels lower than that. But I'm going to explain why that is the case. One, the doors are okay. They're not a bad map traversal. Springtrap can access for doors and can use as map traversal. Don't get me wrong, that's not a bad thing. Getting undetectable is also neat to have, especially fitting for an animatronic killer. But the problem with the doors I have is that survivors can also use them, and if they're lucky, I mean, they can't pick like Springtrap can, but if they're lucky, they could end up on another gen, so they can use that against you, especially in chase. I know Springtrap can try to jump scare and make it risky, but because they can tell if someone's in chase or not, that's the only time they're going to use a door safely, so you'll never get the benefit out of that. Two, the cameras. Now, the cameras is not a bad thing. It's a good, neat counterplay, and it's really accurate too. The problem I had with them, though, I've been hearing this for a while, but they can use the cameras, and for some weird reason, I get spotted on them through walls when I really shouldn't. It just doesn't make sense, because any of the FNAF games, Springtrap is good at hiding in dark areas in the 3 game, but for some reason, the camera can still spot you through the walls, and it gives everybody extra wall hacks as well for that whole time. I don't know why. And you might say, well, just throw your axe at it. Well, doing that, now you don't have your axe to try to go and get an anti-loop if you're being looped by a survivor through a window or pallet. So it's just, that's why most Springtrap players don't really throw it, unless if they have nothing else better to do but patrol. Now, with that speaking, that's my issue with the doors. Now it's the axe. The fire axe is a weird one to me, because for some weird reasons, people say that Springtrap's badass with that fire axe. But in any of the FNAF games that I played, 3, 6, Security Breach, I've never really seen Springtrap use a fire axe at all. He just kills you with his hands so far. I mean, of course he'll need a weapon in this game, because that's just how DBD works, but him having a fire axe does feel a bit weird to me. Either way, that's not what I'm going to talk about. The gameplay sense with this axe is really bad. I don't find the axe as truly good with anti-loop as people give credit for. The axe is good to get hits, at least in the open, and I know a lot of players can actually use the axe to get oracle shots, which is pretty crazy when you land that. But you give it some time, and the survivors will just always assume you're gonna throw the axe to get oracle shots. It's the exact same thing as I explained in my Pyramid Head video. You can't always just use it just to go for oracle shots, because then survivors are always going to assume you're doing that. Like I said, you gotta switch strategy. Not saying you shouldn't use it, but just pick a different strategy, then keep repeating it back and forth to keep them guessing. Either way, a lot of people, even though they're pretty good at Springtrap, get too cocky going for these oracle shots, and then the survivors are just always going to run wide on that. Not to say that they're bad, but it will eventually happen. They will eventually adapt that. So that's why you want to switch your strategy a lot. Now, the axe itself does feel smooth to use, but the big problem I had with it is I don't think it's good at anti-loop. It's good at getting hits, of course, and ranged attacks, and on low loops it's good on, but on the walls and stuff, I mean, it's like that for every ranged killer except for Pyramid Head. Every killer has that problem. Of course, you can't hit a survivor if they're behind walls, except just for Pyramid Head or Vecta. But if a survivor is very good at holding a wall effectively, the fire axe, you're never going to get this hit. Like this little loop right here, I cannot get a hit. I can't get into position to do that. It's just better to just run and deal with a pallet than to just try to get the axe hit, because you're not going to get that. It just won't work. The moment you try to wind up your axe hit, the survivor already around that corner, and you can't throw your axe at something that's already around the opposite side. And you can't get into the position to do that because Springtrap moves at 110 with that axe. And you can't just throw your axe just to get faster and then try to recall and wind up, because it will take more time and it'll be too late before you know it. So the axe, while it can be affected on some loops, the best example I can give about this is Greenville Square, Dead Sands, Area Crow's Dead Sands. Those two maps have these two weird double pallets that is around a rock. They're unsafe. They're not that great to loop, but a survivor can just easily run that and hold that crap as hard as they can. And as long as they continue doing that, you will never, ever, ever get that axe hit. It just won't work. It won't work like that. The best way to get it is if they're in the open area where they can't go behind something, or around loops where even though they'll try to crouch, most likely you'll get hits around loops that are not too high wall you can hit over. And now the loops like the shack, well, I can go behind a door and try to get a axe wind up, and it's like that for almost every killer I play. Vecta, Dracula, Xenomorph, Nemesis, Deathslinger. The problem with Springtrap though is that he moves at 110% speed. He can't get into that position to try effectively wind up the shot before the survivor can make it. And why I mentioned Deathslinger? Well, I know Deathslinger moves at 110 as well, but Deathslinger can just aim at his weapon and shoot way faster than Springtrap can pull out an axe and throw. It's not as fast as Deathslinger's gun. Now, I'm not sure if Huntress suffers that problem because, like, I never played Huntress. I'm not a Huntress player. I barely play her at all. So, but that's the problem with the axe. If Survivor effectively knows how to hold a loop well, you're never going to get that axe hit. And it's just better to just get looped like M1 and eat the pallet, deal with it before you continue doing chase. So, Springtrap is not... He's not truly a bad killer, but he doesn't feel great either. And with all the Survivors perks buff, the healing meta, the Vigilant and Sprint Burst meta, all of this just hurts Springtrap. He can't copy Zen well as other killers can. Survivors heal too quickly, well, he has to get his axe back and then wind it up again. It just hurts him on his map mobility. He can teleport around doors, but he still can't really... He can't pick which door. He can pick which door, but he can't like move around all the doors like Springtrap or like Xenomorph can. Springtrap really just feels like Xenomorph to me, very similarly, because Xenomorph can just go through tunnels, and Springtrap can go through doors. But difference is, Xenomorph can just pick which tunnel it wants to crawl out, and he gets information above survivors when he's moving around tunnels. Springtrap, though, can only pick a door he wants to travel. But if a survivor's on the opposite side, well, you can't check there. Now you gotta go back to the door again. So, Xenomorph just has better mobility on that term. And then, Xenomorph, while cannot throw the axe, or, well, cannot, like, go longer beyond 4.8 meters of that range of his tail attack, it's already prime and ready, and it moves at 110. Like, Xenomorph, Nemesis, Unknown, Pyramid Head, Dracula, most of the other range killers, they can get into that position and go for a shot better than Springtrap can. Because either A, they move at 15% speed, so they have that extra boost to make it, or B, because they can wind up their attack quicker and go faster, like Deathslinger's case I mentioned. Springtrap can't do that. Springtrap doesn't move 115, and he doesn't wind up the axe fast enough to try to get the hit. So most cases, survivors will just make it before you have the chance to throw it. This is why I run Bamboozle a lot on him. The windows are annoying. Pallets are annoying as hell too. Depends on how good they run the loop. So all in all, Springtrap, he's my favorite killer, and I've known him for almost 10 years since FNAF 3. But in game, it just doesn't feel that good with him. It doesn't feel good trying to get an axe hit around loops if survivors know how to effectively hold the loop well. If they know how to hold the wall well, it won't work. And while he can wind up and he's decent at zoning and he can zone better than Huntress, well, he can't get into that position quickly because he moves 110. In all honesty, Foxy's hook just feels always requirement because the axe area effect is not even that good. Springtrap's footsteps are also really loud, so you can't mind game well with him as well. And then the undetectable you get out of doors just doesn't help that much because his footsteps are just loud. This is one of the things I don't like about Springtrap, is that you have to literally get Glitch Trap skin just to play him effectively, which is again another pay to win crap that I don't like. So Springtrap can't really throw the axe effectively around loops if they know how to hold it well. Survivors can try to get wall hacks 24/7 through cameras that weirdly spotted you out of nowhere. Springtrap can't move into a position fast enough to try to land the score to hit like most range killers can do better. And while he can go through doors, they do show off a glitch status, so survivors will just know you're going through it. So that's another thing why the undetectable is not useful. And it's just not all that good with him. Holding W and pre-running and pre-dropping is a bitch with Springtrap as well. Oftentimes or not, I have to throw my axe just so I can move faster and then recall it afterwards. But so far, I do like his voice lines, I like his character design, and I like the fact you can grab a survivor immediately from the axe, but that's just rare now these days because survivors know how to play against Springtrap effectively better. All honestly, Killer Instant doesn't really help that much because survivors will just know that they're in it and they can hear Springtrap's footsteps, so they can kind of read you through walls as well before the bug got fixed. If Springtrap just has quieter footsteps, has a smoother wind up, or at least being 115 the whole time like most other range killers are, and the camera not being able to spot you unless if you're in line of sight of it, then I think Springtrap would be a good killer. But right now, it just feels like Foxy's hook is just always required to use, because without it, you're just clunky and slow. Like, you can't get in the position. At least when you're in that axe range, you get the speed boost benefit. And if you can recall your axe fast enough with an add-on, a brown add-on, then you might have the chance to get in that position. But yeah, so far, Springtrap doesn't feel that good to play. It has gone pretty shit most of the days. And I think part of that is also because killer games got harder. Survivors all spawn together. Healing is now easier than ever. Pre-running is better than ever. So, like, Springtrap just can't comprehend all of the crap that has happened now. And heck, I mean, the Go Next prevention that's now, that was originally implemented, does stop survivors from killing themselves on hook, because that's annoying. But now it just makes M1 killers or low tier killers a bit more worse now, because of how effectively they'll keep playing. So, Springtrap is not just almost a bad killer with all the problems he had, but it's also because of the problem of the base game itself from the Survivor update, especially with now we have these new items. But right now, I'm done talking with Springtrap. I don't really think he's a B tier. I think he's more like mid-C, high-C, but that's what I really think about Springtrap, and I'm sad about that. So hopefully he gets minor changes and buffs that will help him, and I'm going to end this right here.